Good day, Science Explorer. Welcome to the Physics Behind, and we thank you for visiting our channel. Here we break the boundary between science and everyday life. Want to learn more about the physics behind the items you use regularly? Well, you have visited the right place, because in knowing the physics behind, only then can we know the world beyond. Have a look at this picture right here. So cute. What about these magazine covers right here? Oh, hey Troy Sivan. Hey Zendaya. Didn't expect to see you guys here. What about this one right here? Ugh, boring. But seriously, would you believe me if I tell you that all of those are made possible by really small dots? Well, you should, because it's true. Every book, every document, contract, and even picture is made of millions or even billions of tiny little dots. These droplets of ink are almost microscopic because they are even smaller than the diameter of your hair. Crazy, right? But don't underestimate these tiny little droplets because without them, our business, enterprise, commercial, and industrial needs will not be met and satisfied. So, how are these dots produced? Well, they are made possible by inkjet printers, which will be the item of discussion here in the physics behind. Inkjet printer is a type of computer printing that recreates digital images by propelling droplets of ink onto paper or plastic substrates. Sounds pretty simple, right? But actually, within a single minute of you printing a document, many complex processes are taking place in order to produce a single picture. Now, there are two primary methods when it comes to inkjet printing. The first one is the continuous process, and the second one is the drop-on-demand process. Let's first have a look at the continuous process. So, the process starts with the ink cartridges, the location where the ink is stored. The print head will then transfer the ink near the nozzle where it can heat up and prepare to be discharged. Once the ink is ready, it will be forced out of the nozzle through the application of pressure. But how are the tiny little dots formed? Well, after being released from the nozzle, the device will use disturbances at a particular wavelength to break the ink into tiny little drops. Using a piezoelectric transducer, the disturbance will be regulated and will remain at the right frequency. This means that the ink breakup will be controlled and that the streams of tiny little droplets will be uniformed. But the process does not end there. The droplets of ink are then going to pass through an electrode which would select certain droplets to be electrically charged, while certain droplets will remain uncharged. Now, as the droplets are falling down with the help of gravity, they will pass through field plates, which would redirect and guide the charged droplets towards the paper or plastic substrate. In the graphic on your right, you will find that the charged droplets are colored blue while the uncharged droplets are colored black. So, what does happen to the uncharged droplets? Well, they will be captured by the catcher so that they may go back to the ink cartridge where they can be reused for the next time you print another document. Keep in mind that this process happens for every ink cartridge, and a modern inkjet printer has 4 ink cartridges for the colors cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, meaning that 4 continuous processes are simultaneously happening just so you can print a single picture. Now, let's have a look at the second method, which is the drop-on-demand process. Now, this process is simpler in comparison to the continuous process and is also commonly found in HP printers. Now, let's dive in and see how this process works, shall we? Remember the ink cartridges we talked about earlier? That's right. This is the location where the ink is stored, and a modern printer can have 4 ink cartridges. But apart from that, each ink cartridge has about 2,100 to 4,200 nozzles. meaning that a single modern printer actually has 8,400 to 16,400 nozzles all in all. These nozzles are the ones that produce the tiny little dots that are smaller than the diameter of your hair. So how again are these tiny little dots produced? Well, unlike the continuous process, the drop-on-demand process uses a heater pad, also known as a bubble jet, in order to produce a vapor bubble that will increase the pressure in the areas near the nozzle, which will ultimately lead to an ejection of ink droplets. When an ink droplet is ejected from the nozzle, some ink actually returns to the nozzle and becomes part of another droplet. The rest of the ink will serve as the tail of the droplet or will possibly break up into smaller satellite drops. Take note that the flight drop from the nozzle down to the paper or plastic substrate is about 1 millimeter and takes about 100 microseconds. By the time the ink droplet arrives, another vapor bubble has been formed in order to eject another droplet of ink. And so the process continues so you can have a hard copy of any document and any picture that you desire. As mentioned earlier, inkjet printers are innovations that were made to satisfy our business, enterprise, commercial, and industrial needs. If you're an accountant, you'll need this device in order to print out necessary documents that you will submit to your superiors, like financial statements, cash memos, receipts, debit, and credit notes. If you are a marketer, this device will be your friend when it comes to marketing campaigns. You will use inkjet printers to create posters, catalogs, brochures, and even magazines. And that's how literally and figuratively, inkjet printers have made it possible for tiny little dots to make a huge and significant difference in our world. Once again, thank you for visiting us, Science Explorers, and remember, in knowing the physics behind, only then can we know the world beyond.